Geez, the last time I talked about Rick and Morty was when I would ramble into the microphone and hope that I made cohesive thoughts. Anywho, hello cartoon fanatics, RJ here, and welcome back to Cartoon Corner. That's right, Rick and Morty has returned, and despite the disappointing end of Season 3, I came into Season 4 with, honestly, no expectations. Seriously, I've been so busy with so many other projects and cartoons that Rick and Morty went on the back burner until I realized, oh, that's right, there's a new season out now. And while it's not as heart-pumping as Season 3's opening, there's actually some interesting developments, specifically with Morty. Allow me to elaborate. That sounded posh. Allow me to elaborate. Why am I trying to sound like an aristocrat? This episode starts with Rick and Morty going to fetch some death crystals, which tells you the different ways you can possibly die. Morty gets a little too absorbed in these crystals' outcomes, seeing a death where he grows old with his crush Jessica, and despite Rick's usual sarcastic warnings, he pockets the crystal to try and follow the path that will lead to the most preferable death. And in true Rick and Morty fashion, this leads to some hilarious, chaotic moments. Morty goes from being confident as he walks towards his preferable future, ironically not being able to see his actual present around him, and to him taking out a bunch of bullies, and that escalating into taking out the police and some branch of the government, I think. Then he goes on trial and convinces the judge to let him go by appearing to be some sort of psychic. And even though Jessica invites him to a raunchy date, he travels to the desert and encapsulates himself to stay in one place until it was his time for his desirable future. You know what's interesting about this? Is that Morty's not really the pushover he was in earlier seasons. He snapped a bit during Season 3, and now we're seeing a more, dare I say, balanced version of that. I mean, he kills Rick on accident while trying to follow this future, and then he blatantly ignores holographic Rick, who's trying to be his conscious. Sounds like kind of a thing that Rick would do. Huh. Of course, the real Rick isn't actually dead. Nah, he's too busy having this surreal B-plot where his mind keeps going to a bunch of backup clones from different dimensions, and somehow most of them end up being dictatorship dimensions, until he ends up in one with literal wasps who treat each other better than Rick's own family. I'm calling it now, Wasp Rick is best Rick. Debate over, everyone go home. Are you being serious or sarcastic? I'm being sarcastic. What do you think, Lucy? Yeah, embrace the dark side, boss. Lucy, let me finish the review. Fine. In the end, holographic Rick, real Rick, and Wasp Rick all get the death crystal away from Morty, and after another insane event, Morty's parents are both ready to put the blame all on Rick. And surprisingly, Morty takes the blame, and since it was Morty's actions, his parents let it slide, leaving Morty and Rick to ramble on about all the adventures they are going to have. It's pretty much the ending we've gotten at the beginning of every season, but here's what's different. Before, it was just Rick ranting on like a lunatic and Morty cowering underneath him. This time, Morty is joining in with Rick, both exciting each other about all the crazy stuff they're going to get into. This is kind of a huge character change for Morty. He's more accepting on his wild adventures with Rick, and instead of caving in or trying to fight it, he's just going all in, guns blazing. My point is that this is the most secure we've seen Morty. I'd love for this to somehow tie into evil Morty and what's going on at the Rick Citadel, but who knows. It's too early to tell, and Rick and Morty always kind of teeters on going deeper into the story and then just kind of throwing it all out the window, so I'm not holding my breath. It would be cool to see Morty grow in ways that make him similar to evil Morty, and then have some kind of insane showdown between the two. Again, all speculation, but this is a pretty solid start to Season 4. Hopefully they don't peter out like they did with Season 3. Then again, the third season of a lot of shows kind of pitters out. Why is that? Are Season 3s just cursed or something? So, if Morty's becoming more like Rick, then what is going to happen to Rick? We already see that his authority over the family is dwindling with Beth and Jerry sticking together, which is still weird, and I'm not entirely sure how they decided to get back together, but whatever. Morty's rising up to the occasion more, but I don't think Rick really sees that as a threat. To him, he just doesn't have to argue as much because Morty's more willing to go along with things. I suppose there's still some room to figure out Summer's dynamic with our titular characters. She had some moments in the past, but if Morty is becoming more balanced, then he and Rick might make Summer into the new Morty, since she's still trying to get on their adventures and they keep shutting her out. Does that make sense? Does any of that make sense? I'm asking because I genuinely can't tell. My head hurts trying to read this thing. I guess the last important thing to point out is this episode's end credits, which bring the whole Morty story around. He was trying to get the future death where he dies with Jessica saying, "I love you," but in the credits we find out that future Jessica was just doing her job as a caretaker of people with no families that were about to die. It's that sick irony that Rick and Morty loves to play with, and the fact that you could watch the whole episode and not find that out because it's saved for after the credits is pretty ingenious. It's not teasing anything huge or showing a new character, it's just adding one extra joke that makes you rethink the whole episode. And that's pretty clever when you really think about it. Just don't let it go to your heads, fandom, please. We've already had enough embarrassing moments. If you liked this, give a thumbs up and press that like button. I'm going to try my best to crank out these kind of short reviews every week covering a new Rick and Morty episode, so click the bell icon to be notified on future Cartoon Corners and other fun videos that we have here on the channel. And comment below on moments you loved from the most recent episode, or more importantly, do you think we'll ever see Evil Morty again? Let me know down below. I'm actually excited to get into Rick and Morty again with fresh eyes and just being able to sit back and enjoy it. I hope you guys get to do the same.